Hi guys, and welcome to Beinkamp Draws. In this video I'm going to give feedback on a drawing that I was sent by one of my subscribers, and I'm actually pretty excited about this one because I received this drawing also with a really relevant and important question, which is how do I make my line art work with the coloring that I put onto my drawing? Because often what you will find when you start out with coloring your line art is that either there is too great of a disconnect between the line art and the coloring, or if you remove the line art, the coloring still looks kind of flat. And for this subscriber, Kaew Kenyapat, which I'm sorry guys, these names, I don't know if I'm saying it right. But this subscriber was asking about that exact thing, like how come when I remove my line art, the color just looks kind of flat and smushed and there's no really texture in it. And that is what I'm going to work with, improving this drawing. First of all, I would like to say that I think the sketch in this drawing works really well. I think it's really fun, and I like that it's so simple in a way. What we want to do here is to create more coherency between the line art and the coloring that is used. Now, because I have this in a flat JPEG file, I can't really remove the line art from the coloring, so I'm just gonna draw on top of this. Normally, if you have a separate layer for your line art and a separate layer for your coloring, I would recommend that you go into your line art layer and then you smush out the line art into the coloring. But we can do it this way, this is fine as well. But before going into that, I just, for the sake of the drawing, want to do this because I think there was something with the stance of this cute little doggo that I wanted to change. And I'm also just gonna erase some of this so it doesn't look askew. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna blend in the line art. And for this purpose, I want to stay on the layer where my drawing is. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate it, because if I made a mistake, I have a copy of the original drawing. I'm going to use my smush tool up here and my awesome smush paintbrush that I modified specifically for this purpose. And then I'm going to go in and then I'm going to smush the line art out. Now at the beginning of this process, it might look a little bit strange, but that's okay because I'm gonna go in afterwards and then I'm gonna apply some more texture to the line art. But for now, I just want it to merge with the underlying coloring that I have in the drawing. Now, as I said before, this can be a little bit difficult when you don't have separate layers for your line art and your coloring. Right now I'm working with this drawing all in one layer. So I think I'm just gonna speed up this video so we can take it quickly to the next step. Okay, so now we smushed out a lot of the line art, and what we're left with is actually kind of the problem that my subscriber was describing to us, which is that kind of looks a little undefined and a little bit of a mess because we need these outlines. So how do we work with that? Well, the trick is not to just create a new line art and then have the same problem, but we have to create some sort of textual contrast between our colors so they don't just merge in a blurry, undefined way. And I can see that my subscriber used sort of like a chalky brush. Okay, so I found something that fits a little bit better. I'm going with the 4B compressed charcoal pencil. I think that that might be good. I might still maybe go back and use my own construction pencil for some finer details, but for now I'm going to stick with this one. So what we want to do now is we're going to create some contrast. When we create contrast by, for example, finding out where we have shadows and then drawing that in, what we're also doing is we're creating a bit of a 3D kind of effect, which gives more volume and mass to the object, or in this case the body that we're working with. Because these contrasts that closes the gaps between where you have highlights and shading is what helps define what you're working on. So it's not about creating a new line art, it's about creating contrasts in your values, which helps shape the character that you're working with. And honestly, to be fair, this is a difficult process. This requires a lot of practice, a lot of knowledge about light sources and also shapes, how a light source will fall on the body of your character. The way that I went about learning that was actually just to do a lot of studies about shading, and then just there's no way around it. You're gonna have to do a lot of trial and error, and I still do that. It's not just a process for me of just going straight in and getting it right the first time. Probably in this drawing I'm gonna make a lot of mistakes, and then I'm gonna hopefully draw myself towards where I want to be with this drawing. Okay, since this is a flat picture and the sort of brownish grayish background right here is not something that is separate from my drawing, I'm going to color pick this color, and I'm actually going to use it as an eraser because I kind of want a little bit more shape to the ears. Well, sometimes when we draw, we can maybe get a little bit too, what can I say, like we can get a bit too perfect with our shapes, and we tend to make them very round. And actually in a lot of natural shapes there's much more edges and sort of like almost geometry shapes in our textures. So instead of having these rounded edges everywhere, try to go for something with a bit more edge to it. Now I don't have the original picture of this dog, so right now I'm just freestyling a little bit. Okay, so now I tried to give it a little bit more edge. I think that helped a tiny bit. I'm just gonna go back to my construction pencil and try to work in some more details, maybe some few hairs at the ears right here. Sometimes when we go from the line art layer and we start to color, we get a little bit lazy. We think as soon as we colored the line art, then everything just works out. Then we don't have to go back in and do the details all over again. You have to remember when you're set on coloring, the coloring is where you do all of your hard rendering. The line art is sort of like it's template for how your drawing is going to work out. So you can't just expect to put in a lot of work in the line art and then not do the very same thing when you're coloring. And I know that this can be a little bit annoying because you just spent so much work figuring out how your character is going to look through your line art, and now you're going to have to do it all over again with the coloring, but that's part of the process. Now you can see that what I'm doing right now kind of functions a little bit like a form of line art, but it's not well defined and totally straight. It's just adding that extra texture to your character, which helps it seem more rounded. Now again, my way of drawing is still my style, so maybe you look at this and you think it's getting a little bit too stylized, which means that stylized illustration is when you give animals a sort of like a cartoonish look, but that's my style and my way of drawing. It doesn't have to be something that you adapt. If you want it to look a bit more naturalistic, of course you go for that. This is just something that I enjoy and I like to do. Now when you see me drawing like this, you see me zooming out, back and forth all the time. That is because if I stay in one zoomed position, I tend to lose focus of what I'm doing. So zooming out is a great way to see if I'm doing something wrong, something is not working. A way you can do that is also by flipping the canvas. Actually, it was good that I did that. I can see it's a little bit askew in the face. Okay, I think we're ready for another step that could potentially lift a character off the paper. And this is going to be a little difficult again because we have this outline right here which is sort of in the way now. So I have to do it the hard way and erase that in order to do the trick that I'm going to do. So I'm just going to speed it up for that. Actually, instead of just erasing the outline, I had an idea to go in, because this is such a dense flat color, you can just select it like that. It's about finding like the right threshold to do this, but I actually think this is working. And then you can just erase it. Haha! Don't we all just love a nice shortcut? And then you can always go in and try to sort of refine the rest of it. Okay, that was a bit of a sneaky process, but it worked. And now we have something that we can kind of use for the next trick. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a new layer. We already have one there, and we're gonna create a crippling mask. Gonna find a bluish shadow, keeping it cold in the shade like that. I'm gonna drag it over. If you've been following my videos, you have seen this trick a ton of times by now, but it's just so good at creating this shape, extra shape to the character. I'm gonna leave it at 52. Then I'm gonna create a mask, and then I'm gonna slowly start to erase light. And I think I want a light source that comes from this side right here. Just go back. Now sometimes we also have a little like cast off light. You have to imagine that the light source, which is where it shines the brightest, comes from over here, but it probably hits something over here and then casts it back, if that makes sense. And that means that sometimes we do have a little bit of a highlight also on the back. It seems counterintuitive, but it actually works in giving the character that extra something. Okay, let's just remove this mess right here. Okay, after this you can actually go back and you can see how light you want it. I think I want it a little bit lighter because I don't want something too intense. I just want to give more shape to the character. I'm gonna make another layer again and create a clipping mask, and then I'm gonna put it into overlay because I want the light source to be a bit warm, and I can do that by picking a yellow color and then color the light source over here a little bit. And this often also contrasts and complements very well with the blue tones in the shadow. Now, if you want to make it a little bit more contrasty, you can make another layer again, put it in clipping mask and in overlay, and then you can go in and find that blue hued shade, and you can go in and you can create a little bit of extra shadows in the places where you know the shadow would be a bit more dense. And see how it sort of contrasts the whole thing. This is a step where it can be very easy to take it a little too far. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes that boundary for me is is a little bit blurry. The reason I'm doing this by the tongue is because I'm imagining that there's a little bit of shade from that. Maybe that would be a case where less is more, but I think I'm still gonna leave it there. Now for some final details, and this is really up to, you know, how much time you want to spend on the whole rendering process. And like for these pictures, maybe it's not so relevant, but going in and adding some final highlights can sort of lift the drawing. For this process, it helps to give the background a little bit of color so you can see what you're doing. And just to give an example, here's the old picture, and as you can see, it's a very different style. Whether or not you want to change the picture this significantly is of course totally up to you, but in this case the question and remark was that how do I take the coloring to the next level, and these are some of the steps that I would personally use to change up my drawing. And this doesn't really take that long. This is not a long process by any means. And of course I sped up this video, but I'm looking at the time right now and it says about 40 minutes. So that's not really too bad in changing the outline of a drawing like that. And a quick shout out to Gabriela Matysik for this drawing. She asked for help, and the first thing that I thought when I saw this drawing was, what do you need help with? This is a super awesome drawing. And I think what Gabriela is doing right in this drawing is again working with the contrast and with the shading. And just to quickly go over it, the wings that you see right here has a really nice shading that fits the wings, which makes it appear like the wings really does you know, disengage from the body like that. It's not just merged into the body, which we sometimes tend to do. So that is a really neat trick. Another thing right here with the mouth is that there is a really nice highlight here. So you can see if I erase this, it looks more like somebody just drew a line over it, but this little highlight sort of lifts it. And so that is a really nice way of doing it. You use it as well when you draw scars. So let's say that this kitty has a scar right here. If you just draw it like that, kind of, you're not really sure of what it is. Is it a crack? Does it really go into it? Is it just a pencil that was mistakenly drawn over the character? It doesn't really look like anything. But if you put a highlight over it like that, then it kind of looks like it blends into the body. And if you're really cool, then you also smudge it in a little bit with the color next to it. And now can you see? Now it looks like there's really a crack. That's the same technique that was used over here. So really well done with that. The only thing maybe I would say about this drawing is maybe it would have benefited by a little more contrast where you have intense shadows. It doesn't have to be a lot, it could be something like that. Also here with the ear, if we take a less intense color, just like that to lift it. Right here we could benefit of a line that really separates the leg from the body here. I would just go in and I would emphasize that a little bit more. And it doesn't take a lot to do this actually. It's very, very little, but it just makes such a difference. And another thing I would probably do, I would also do some highlights to the goggles right there. But other than that, really great drawing. There's another one here by Gore, and I just wanted to do a shout out to this drawing because I think it's super cute. I really like the intense look in the eyes here. There is a very, very subtle shade going from this grayish white, like over here, to the lighter white over here. Sort of like a gradient that has been pulled over the character, and that works really, really well. I also like that the line art is actually what lifts this drawing. The coloring is supporting the line art. Sometimes the line art only supports the coloring until color can stand on its own, and then you work with that. But in this case, I guess the subscriber has gone for a more comic book graphic novel style, which I think works really well. Again, I would probably have worked a little bit more with the highlights in the eyes, just to give that extra. You could even have drawn it over the eye like this to give that feeling of the eye surface, like the eyeball surface. You could do the same thing with the nose. This is such like petty little details, and I wouldn't overdo it at all because you could quickly ruin it. And this is a very particular style, and it doesn't need any blending between the line art and the coloring. The line art is supposed to stand on its own here, so really, really good job with this one as well. But yeah, of course, one last thing. If you are interested in my brushes, there is a link in the description of this video which takes you to my Etsy store where I sell these brushes. It's just a compact set of digital painting brushes. Everything that I use for my digital painting are almost always in this brush set. I don't rarely go out to the other brushes here because I already, matched my needs with this set. Apart from one other set, which is my grass and foliage brushes, which is basically, well, what it says, grass brushes that I use for painting landscapes and so on. And they are also on my Etsy store. That was it, you guys. I hope that you liked this tutorial, and once again, thank you for the subscribers who sent in their drawings. I hope you got something out of it as well. If you liked this video, like it, I would appreciate that. And if you're new to this and you like what I do, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!